Our battle is reminiscent of David and Goliath. There is no battle that the UK has seen that has been bigger than this in legal terms. It is the biggest miscarriage of justice in UK legal history.
These were just like you and me, were very ordinary people that'd gone out to work in the morning in the local community one day, and at the end of that day didn't go home.
They were confronted with the truth. They denied the evidence of their own eyes and of their own experts. And they then began to lie. And it's a shocking, shocking story.
The cover-up went on for a considerable period of time, took a lot of energy, took a lot of planning, and was very detailed.
You would not think in this country you could have effectively an arm of government who are involved in a scandal which is so grotesque.
Martin Griffiths took his own life. He was on his way to interview with the post office, and they'd pushed him over the edge. He'd clearly done nothing wrong, and he was up to his neck in debt. And he walked under a large vehicle.
Post office admit that they got it wrong. They admit incompetence. They don't say why they did what they did. And that's a really important piece of the story that no one has ever wanted to even begin to address. Why? Why did it happen?
The Horizon system was introduced in 1999. It was to automate lots of previously manual tasks. Very quickly after, a lot of sub-postmasters started having unexplained losses.
Even back in those days, they always poo-pooed the fact that there was anything wrong. Because a computer system can't fail.
The Horizon system was originally designed for the Department of Work and Pensions. You just had to find somewhere to shoehorn it in. They spent a lot of money.
One of the things that really occurred to me was that the Post Office never commissioned an independent assessment of whether or not Horizon was working properly. They dealt with it all internally, and that seemed to me to be, as I said in the Court of Appeal, shameful and culpable.
It's a bit like Little Britain. The computer says no. And that was sort of very much the case.
I had a large discrepancy in December 2003. I rang the help desk and they turned my minus 2,000 into minus 4,000, and then I couldn't put it right, they couldn't put it right. Asked the area manager to come down, he couldn't put it right, and he said, oh, I just think it will come out in the wash. Well, the upshot was they made me repay the £4,000, and I didn't owe 2, let alone 4.
They profiteered through confiscation orders and through postmasters and postmistresses paying money back. I
remortgaged the house, stuffed 9 grand in. I borrowed money from a friend, put that in, and it still kept climbing. I got myself in a big hole, ended up £36,000 short.
When an auditor appeared at your post office branch, he or she would appear about 8 o'clock in the morning.
I was actually dropping my kids off school and I came back and I saw them there.
The area manager came and she told me that there was 2 specialists coming to help me search the system to try and find these spurious amounts that the system was generating.
I was so scared, you know. And then there was 2 of them, a man and a woman.
At the time, I really thought that people were coming to help look through the Horizon system and find these figures.
They were private detectives and plainclothes.
I'd been having problems with the Horizon system for years. And I knew that morning that there was £23,000 shortfall, supposed shortfall, in my accounts. And when that auditor walked through the door, my stomach hit the floor.
Money started going missing after we rolled onto the Horizon online. I phoned them up, no help whatsoever, or to come back. All of a sudden, we got an audit. They just said, right, you're suspended over the phone.
They sat down on the sofa and he was looking all round the house, and he said to my mum said, this is my house too, you know. And he stopped looking then.
And I knew this was it. I knew that within half an hour to an hour, it would all come out. I'd been hiding it for quite some time.
The way they were talking, my head was all over the place. I was just a wreck.
I believe if my parents hadn't owned half the house, then they would have gone for it, because that's what they did to recover money. They just seized your assets.
In some ways, I was so crazy as it might seem. It was a relief, because it was going to finally come to a head.
Took me to the local police station, and then they were questioning me, and I was shocked that it all happened. In my books, there was, every time my discrepancy was a couple of quid here or there, but nothing major. That's what shocked me more than anything, when they said there's 200 odd thousand pounds missing.
The interviewers interviewed me in my own home for nearly 4 hours. It was a difficult time, and for years afterwards I struggled with the fact that they'd done that. They'd interviewed me without a solicitor, without anyone else present. They'd refused entry to anybody else that had tried to stop the interview.
By lunchtime, sort of our world had fallen apart in the space of 3 or 4 hours.
And I knew then that the game was up.
The investigators took advantage of me and many others in the same situation when they were conducting their audit interviews. They exploited people's vulnerabilities.
Suddenly, they're being branded criminals. I mean, Lee Castleton's story, after he was branded a criminal by the post office, somebody spat at his daughter in the street, you know. But he was innocent, obviously.
Then you've got to live with the conviction and what the implications of the conviction are. And it's not simply being convicted of dishonesty, it's dishonesty in a position where you were in a position of trust as the sub-postmaster of the post office, where people entrust so much of their lives to a national institution.
Over the following months, the investigators investigated everything except themselves. They didn't investigate the computer system. They tried to see if I'd been to the bookies, they tried to see if I'd been buying brand new cars, going on expensive holidays. Obviously they couldn't find anything because nothing had ever been taken.
They were bringing private prosecutions. So that prevented that tier of transparency and that ability to test evidence.
There's a common theme to all this, because each one of them were told, well, there's only you who've got a problem with the computer system, nobody else has. There's only you running up these deficits. There's only you that's going to need to repay it back to balance the books. And that wasn't true. But for them, they only have one piece of the jigsaw. Post office had a 100-piece jigsaw where they put all the 100 pieces together, and could see that actually what they were trying to suggest was that overnight we'd gone from a nation of honest shopkeepers to a nation of dishonest shopkeepers, because convictions went from 2 or 3 a year to 50, 60, 70 in the early years of Horizon.
They're one of a handful of organisations that have their own investigation service, i.e. a police force that supposedly investigates crimes against them, but they also have their own in-house prosecution service, so they handle everything from start to finish. I was afraid that a policeman might appear, but one never did. And in hindsight, most definitely, it would have been better had the police been called.
The Post Office knew there was problems with the system, but as part of the strategy of prosecution, they were inviting what were defendants at the time to admit their guilt to lesser offences on the pretext of avoiding prison, but making it a condition that they invent stories about why they took the money that they obviously hadn't taken, but also to say, well, we absolutely exonerate the Horizon IT system from having any glitches.
Towards the time when I was going to court, I started training my older one what to do within the house, so that in case, just please go to school, please get your sisters up, please make sure you do this, you do your homework, because I wasn't sure.
What most people don't realise is that when people are being prosecuted, then it absolutely possesses them for the whole time that the process is ongoing. And that process can be 18 months, 2 years, and longer.
They initially charged me with false accounting, but they threatened me. They said that if I don't plead guilty to false accounting in the magistrate's court, they would add a theft charge, take it to the Crown Court, and I'd be looking at 7 years in jail.
In the November of that year, they said, if you plead guilty to false accounting, we'll drop the theft and you repay all the money. But they left the theft on the indictment so that if I didn't pay the money, they would have gone for theft, and I definitely would have gone to prison.
No jury in the land will believe that an organisation as wonderful and prestigious as the Post Office could possibly have a computer system that has flaws in it. He said, if you plead not guilty, given that the sum is 23,000 and the threshold for prison is 20,000, you will receive a custodial sentence. Now that really gets your bum twitching, that does. By Jove, does that frighten you? Well, it frightened me witless.
I said goodbye to them that morning because they went to school. But I wasn't sure if I was going to see them.
In my heart, I was convinced that the jury would be on my side, but it didn't work like that. And then I got 3 years, 3 months jail sentence.
I'm sorry, he said, but I got to send you down. I was flabbergasted, to be quite honest. Reputation gone. I was a county councillor, and it just went.
You end up being in a damage limitation situation.
Tears streaming down my face, and you're not allowed to say anything. I just stood there looking at him, and then he said, well, I'm not considering it a custodial sentence. Well, I felt like I was going to faint.
The whole thing, terror, pure terror.
And then he sentenced me to a year's supervision order, which was, I didn't even know what that was.
The judge said, you've never been in any trouble. I understand that you've been trying to remortgage to pay them, and you've got 3 young children. We are going to let you go.
I sentence you to 7 months in prison. Then he paused and then said, and that is to be suspended for 2 years. I mean, it's horrendous. It was a horrendous feeling. And whether he did it on purpose to scare me, or whether he just did it because that was his way, I'll never know.
From the first day I went in and they slammed that door behind me, slamming that door sound is still in my ears, and that's when I fell apart.
I went to jail when I was 59. I spent my 60th birthday there. It was hard. I spent 8 days in Walton Prison in Liverpool under lockdown, just having an hour out every day. Then I went to an open prison in Kirkham near Blackpool, and ever since then it's been a fight.
I mean, I was really pleased I didn't go to prison, don't get me wrong, but the whole thing was just like mad. And we went to the pub to celebrate, and it's like, I'm celebrating, I've just given them £36,000 plus £1,000 course, and I didn't go to prison, but I didn't do anything wrong.
You'd done nothing wrong. You actually knew you'd done nothing wrong, and yet you was being convicted, and had to do community service.
My life wasn't worth living because I've dragged my kids into a terrible situation. I just didn't want to see anyone. I was so ashamed.
It's difficult to describe someone who hasn't had an injustice done to them. The reputation loss, the tarnish on the family's name, and my future life prospects were absolutely damaged from that point onwards.
Why don't I just kill myself?
Even though I knew I was totally innocent, I somehow felt that shame of being there. And when you have to say guilty, it's like a knife stabbing you in the heart, but you still somehow feel, perhaps I am.
In May 2009, we broke a story which told the stories of 7 postmasters who'd lost their livelihoods because of what they at the time thought was the computer system. But they were blamed and they were, fined, they had to repay money, some were sent to prison, and they went bankrupt, lost their businesses. The thing is, before that article, the people actually genuinely thought it was their fault. Whether they knew they hadn't stolen money, they knew they hadn't accounted falsely, but they thought maybe I'd made a mistake because the post office is saying there's nothing wrong with the computer.
The real catalyst for change was Alan Bates. He was obviously a postmaster that had issues that didn't lead to a conviction, but he challenged and challenged and challenged. And then he got the support group off the ground, and it mushroomed.
I remember the first day I walked into the meeting. It was in a small village hall in the middle of England, and I walked through the doors, and suddenly the room was full of people just like me. I wasn't alone. The post office had done it to lots of people.
And I had to ask the lady, Namba, next to me, I said, are these all sub-postmasters? And she said, yeah.
I got somebody who used to work at the post office who was involved in the actual procurement, the buying of the Horizon system. They contacted me and said, look, I haven't said anything all this time, but I can't hold my silence anymore. And he told me the whole thing, that they were warned at the start that there was problems with the system and it just wasn't ready to go and it wasn't right.
When the penny dropped for me, my blood ran cold.
We managed to get a leaked email from IT support in the post office saying this is a known problem that can cause unexplained losses and we're going to fix it next year. Well, if I can use bad language, somebody sent me, after it had gone live, I got an email with the words, you're a fucking genius. But it wasn't me, it was the union.
So there was a damages agreement for 550 of the claimants that covered some of their losses.
The whole 150-page judgment, or there's just a ridiculous amount of pieces of paper, basically just damned the post office left, right and centre.
He described the post office's denial of errors in the Horizon system as being the 21st century equivalent of believing the earth is flat.
From the civil proceedings, the total award was something of the order of 58 million. But these were, at the time the proceedings were launched, these were risky proceedings. So in effect, the postmasters got about 20%-ish of the overall settlement, which was a derisory amount in the scheme of their losses.
To put it in perspective, the compensation I received won't have even cleared my travel costs or my time over the years fighting this case.
Usually, when we go to court for a big case, you know what the decision is going to be. But in this case, then we didn't have any judgment in advance for some reason.
There's still a lot of nervousness at the moment. Obviously, hopefully, in a couple of hours, we'll have the results that everyone wants, and that will then make it a very, very happy day.
Over the years, we've been let down so much with the system, with the post office not giving us anything. When I come out of there later on, it'll be a different mood, because when the judge actually says we've been acquitted, I'll be happy.
It's a mixture of emotions, sadness, happiness. You know, some people haven't got the husbands with them who should be here, or their wives with them, or their mums with them, you know. And yeah, that bit of it's really sad, but for everybody, this is an amazing day.
It's real, isn't it? You know, we prepare and we get everything together, and there's a process to go through that's sort of long and arduous. And then you walk up this morning, there's all these good people here, you know, ready, excited, full of anticipation, and it becomes real.
I promised him, and I brought him to every judgment, every court appearance, everything. I've been his voice, Emma's been his voice, but she's been my rock, along with the rest of the family.
I remember the day when he came, and it was quite ironic, really. He came down, he was quite insistent that he wanted to come down, and I was actually really frightened that he was going to tell me something really serious, like he had cancer. And instead he told me that he'd been suspended from his job, and he cried and he said, "I didn't do it, Em, I didn't do it."
He had to do 300 hours cleaning graves, and then after that, with a criminal record, he couldn't get a job.
We always promised that irrespective of whatever happened, we would clear his name, and we're really, you know, hopeful that we'll get that decision today.
In 2005, that's when I was prosecuted, and it's taken 16 years to get here now. You know, it's been a long time. Big cheer!
I've got to remember I'm on media, so I won't swear, but it's been hell. Hell.
What did the judge say?
He thanked both us and all our legal teams for the hard work and the tenacity to bring this very, very significant case.
Well, it was a resounding victory, wasn't it, for the postmasters? Exonerated on all counts in what I would describe as a very damning judgment. You know, you pick up some of the sound bites from what the judges had to say, you know, complete disregard for the law in favour of the interests of the post office.
He said they'd steamroll us over the Sub-postmasters, and that will stick in my head forever.
It's hugely important for everybody to be named in the proceedings specifically, to be heard, your name called out. But I think what resonates with me is the number of names that are called out. You know, when you start to get into the 30s, it's a palpable reminder of just what the extent of this malicious prosecution was.
I just wanted to come out here as soon as he said it, but we couldn't leave straight away. We had to wait for a bit, and I come straight here, just hugged everybody, so happy about it. Just look at the future now, see we'll get on with our lives, hopefully. That's all we can do.
I've marched on for this day, and yeah.
I think, you know, as long as, and we know he would be super proud of everything that's been done, and he'll be looking down and hopefully super proud that we've kind of like continued the fight and, you know, cleared his name.
I don't want the big bucks, if you know what I mean. Some of the people in the Royal Mail have gone with big bucks in their pockets, and I hope they're happy with it.
It's been a privilege to serve them until this point, and there's still work to do for them. And you do your best for all your clients, but this is a special group of clients. They're just ordinary people that went out to earn a living and were effectively cut off the knees.
There have been so many brilliant people who've been taking this fight along. The legal teams have been doing this for nothing. These people who've been working for nothing for these sub-postmasters really deserve credit for the success that they've achieved today. A success that is quite unprecedented in this country.
Having worked for somebody for 42 years and been put in prison is not very nice. Not very nice at all. But at last, the sun's shining and I'm free.
I think the thing that I won't be able to forget is the sense of calm joy that I saw with all of them, and the sense of a weight being taken off their shoulders.
You know, if I sit outside of it, it's very easy to be angry, because that could be my parents or grandparents.
Yes, it makes me angry. And also, every time I write a story, I can't believe what I'm writing. I think this can't be true.
I grew up in a very working class family. I grew up with grandparents, and they were meticulously honest. My granddad worked in the stores of a department store. My nana was a full-time housewife. You know, real sort of typical old-fashioned type of growing up with integrity and honesty. And I see that with these people.
It stinks to high heaven. We all know it stinks to high heaven, but they just carries on, doesn't it?
Money, no matter how much any of us get, I don't know about other people, those years wasted can never be gotten back. That much I know.
What I do hope is that there is proper scrutiny of what went on. Not only the post office, but other institutions can learn from what went on in the post office.
The government is involved in this. The post office is owned by the government. The government has somebody on the board of the post office.
Whatever Fujitsu's done, that's just deflection of blame, isn't it? You know, at the end of the day, it sits in the organisation, and you know the fish rots from their down, doesn't it? And that's a really sort of quite a powerful analogy.
I can't leave this behind until justice has properly been done.
I won't stop writing about this because there's so much more to come out. It's a cover-up.
Your internal goal is to try and get to the end of 2021. Everyone have a toast at Christmas to themselves and to people that are no longer with them, and not wake up in 2022 looking back every day and every minute of every day at post office and what post office has done to them.
It's a wonderful afternoon, because when I told my mother, who's 93, I was coming to court, she said, "Get yourself down to Aldi and get some Prosecco." She said, "Just remember your name's Hedges, not Rothschild, so get Prosecco, not Bollinger." So,
what's your name, Tom?
Hedges, Tom Hedges.
Thank you, Tom.
So big cheer, everyone. Well done. Hey!